Hi, I'm Dr. Matthew Norton, founder of People Plus Purpose, and your host on this episode of the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. And today I'm happy to be joined by Kathy Lamont, the practice transition catalyst. And I love that. Kathy has almost 4 decades in the dental industry, moving from hygienist to dental sales to multi-office management to coaching dentists and teams through transitions. Welcome to the podcast, Kathy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. I've been looking forward to this. And that was a quick flash through a bulk of your life right there. But anything else that you might like to share that adds nuance to any of that timeline? And then maybe even, how you got started in the beginning with dentistry.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I got started obviously my dental career very early on. In my life, and loved dentistry, just passionate about it, but felt like clinical dentistry had run its course for me. And the dental sales was a great opportunity to use my knowledge and education that I had to help other people and serve kind of the industry in a different way, and really enjoyed that. And through that met a doctor with a DSO that I was negotiating some group pricing, and just fell in love with what he was doing, his vision, and left sales and went into the DSO market to do regional management. And that was a really exciting time. I learned a lot of great things from that, a lot about transitions, obviously, and bringing on a lot of young associates to those practices. And then once that kind of commitment was over, I really thought I want to bring this to small groups that are dental dentist owned. Mm-hmm. So, because I think to get the economies of scale for to try to compete with the DSO market and play in that same field is that having that ability to have a couple of different practices and kind of some different ownership models that give those practices that economies of scale. So I really have enjoyed that. And after a few years, I was done with my commitments with the groups I was working with. And I said, you know what, this is the time to share the love with everyone. So so that's kind of my journey in a nutshell. And I just am passionate about dentistry. I'm a little bit of a dental geek. So don't get me started on dental materials. And but yeah, that's my journey in a nutshell.
That's great. Thank you. Well, I'm glad you're here today to share spread that love with the rest of us today. So,
sure.
So in all of that time, and as we've come into current times, what are some of your thoughts as far as pain points in the dental profession that you're coming across that you see regularly expressing, and what's kind of top of mind for you there?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that really drives me is that associate model. And when doctors want to scale and evolve and grow their practices, that's often their first step, is to bring on the associate. But honestly, my experience over the last many years has been, it's really a failed model. These associates, how we bring them on, the mentoring that goes along with it, preparing the office prior to, it's just a huge problem in the industry. And I feel like that's an area that really needs a lot of attention, again, because if we're going to scale and grow these smaller group practices that are dentist owned, we have to have a great process for that can nurture those new dentists and such into the profession. So I think that's a big problem today that I'm seeing in a lot of the practices, that they've had a lot of failed associateships and they're just gun shy. And I think that's leading to a lot of sales into the corporate dentistry, DSOs, where private practices are selling to, in that case, because they just can't find an associate. But it's a systemic problem from the other end that we really need to look at. It's not the associate, it's the process of being prepared.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's, and I think profession wide, it's not been solved well at all. And is it something that people are thinking it's going to be a lasting proposition, this owner associate relationship,
Right.
or are they imagining that it's going to go into something more, and at some point we're going to talk about that,
Right.
or do we immediately approach it from a partnership standpoint, but we haven't really dated very long and really don't know
Right.
if this is going to work before
Yeah.
we completely merge our lives together. And I think that I see so often that there's not been a plan, like you say,
Mhm.
and that people are not compatible. They don't have the same values necessarily, nor the same strengths and style, or that's going to be complementary. I just think I agree with you. It's just
Yeah.
a mess much of the time.
Yeah. Albert Einstein, I think, said that we spend 10% of our time thinking about the problem and 90% on the solutions, which it should really be the reverse. Like, what's the true problem we're trying to solve? And then let's then figure out, what we need to fill it in. And I think that you hit the nail on the head with, what's going on in the industry and the problems. And, I agree, there's a great model. It's a trial partnership, and it's really an associate that's coming on, and we're going to pay them like an owner, just so they can understand that ownership. And they may want to stay in that world forever because there's no, financial commitment they have to make. But it gives them that sense of ownership, and they're getting, kind of a percentage of the profits kind of thing. And it's a great model. And I think it's one that, really needs to be explored more to kind of retain those employees and have a path to, yes, when we reach this, we're going to switch into the co-ownership, or if we're buying another practice. And it's a great way, if they are going to expand with multiple practices, to buy down their own debt. Right. And bring other people on. So it's a great concept. And I really want to get that out into the world a little bit more to see if that's helpful with retaining, great associates. But you're right, you do have to start at the beginning. What do I really need? What do I want? Someone that complements me, or someone that's doing the same procedures? Right. And ultimately, what I want out of it. Do I want to increase production, or do I just want more time off?
Right.
And I'm okay with the production and the profits where they are, but I'm just worn out.
Right. Yeah.
So just identifying those things on the front side is really helpful.
I think that's great. That's great. So other pain points that come to mind that you would like to speak to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think as staffing goes, obviously we have the quiet quitting, the big resignation, whatever you're calling it these days. But,
right.
Unfortunately, dentistry lost a lot of great employees during the beginnings of COVID. A lot of people retired, people just chose other professions. And it's going to take us a little while to kind of recoup that. I do see that becoming a less of an issue today. It seems to be loosening up a little bit. We're graduating some of the paraprofessionals out of school, the assistants and hygienists, and that's helping. But I think that's a big issue is, retaining, again, good employees, attracting and retaining and creating that culture where you are the employer of choice, and you're not that pariah of offices where nobody wants to work. So I think today it's even more important to focus on and cultures. I know, big buzzword. What does that really mean? But where people feel valued and empowered and really part of the process. And I think that's obviously not something that's taught a lot in dental school. Right. And coming out and not really understanding how to communicate with your team. And that's I think one of the bigger issues today with teams is building that resident team that's going to have the same vision as you.
Yes. It seems to me also like I see in any of these problems that we could talk about, mm-hmm. that there is the silver lining in there, sure. The benefits of things like COVID, for example, mm-hmm. because they create opportunity to consider reinvention, right? Because people did take advantage of that time. Mm-hmm. They chose to or felt backed into it, I guess could go either way. But to say, I need to do something else, this is not working for me, or it's not going to work for me on the back end of COVID. Sure. But also I think that it's forcing a reconsideration, I think, from a career perspective, and I don't think we're far into it yet. I think the
Yeah.
hygienists are getting into that to say, well, what are my other options for reinventing myself
Right.
other than going right back into what I did? At least I'm going to get more money for it if I'm going to go right back into what I did,
Sure.
but maybe I want to do something else, right? And I think that from a dental assistant role, from my perspective, it's an opportunity and a need as well. Is that really a career?
Right.
How long does that last? And do people just end up doing that and then filling in other roles in how are we really going to look at this from a business perspective moving forward that makes it some sort of win-win relationship?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that obviously a lot of people did choose other careers, and probably some of it comes from the children. A lot of our industry is female, and although stereotypically they're more involved with the childcare, but they did have to stay home, and children were not allowed to go to school, and they didn't have other means. And so I think you're right. It did force them to find other avenues and maybe just reevaluate. And they figure they didn't really need the money after all, without, when you take childcare and all that other stuff out of it. So yeah, I feel like that's a big reason that, hygienists and assistants left, and then, finding it something else out. I think for all of us, it was a time of reflection. You had those, I know in our area, we had 7 weeks where we didn't work, and it really did give a lot of people time to think about, what do I like, what don't I like? And I think going back to be able to negotiate with their practices as well. But I think what I did find was that a lot of these people that left really didn't leave the industry. They found that there's a very lucrative, flexible thing called temping. And it became very easy to temp, and they could get high dollars, and it could be on their own terms. So I feel like that has become, I've run across people, hey, are you looking for a full-time job? No, I'm just temping, and it's a flexible option for people today.
yeah. What do you think the downside cost overall for the industry or for other people involved, like the doctors, can be in that sort of a model shift?
Yeah. I mean, economically, if you're going to an agency, there's a 30%, tap on to an already inflated income, of a hourly rate for these employees. So you're tacking on a lot of extra to them, and they don't know your office, right? There's always that, how are they going to work with the patients? And the only thing our patients remember is how we made them feel. So if we have this temp that doesn't really, care as much as others, it's a bad reflection on the office sometimes. So I think that's how it hits them hard. It's hard on the team that they have full time, because they take on a bigger load of what happens. Oftentimes temps don't, they don't want to do any extra. They don't want to stay after and make sure the vacuums run or anything like that. So I think economically it's hitting them in that way. And, unfortunately, I guess one of the bigger problems is that we can't make more money if we're a PPO driven practice, because those fee schedules aren't going up enough anyway. I mean, I think Delta Dental raised fees by $1 or $2 in the past 18 months, but obviously that doesn't combat the inflated salaries and such that we're dealing with. So I think that that's a kind of an interesting way to look at it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like perpetual dating, right? It's where's in temping, are you really committed? No, we're just dating. Yeah. And how does that feel for other team members, to your point, to have other people just kind of, are you committed? Are you a part of this team? Yeah, I'm just checking you out. I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
You've been here 2 years temping. Yeah, well.
Haven't found that right match yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe tomorrow we'll decide.
Yeah.
So any other particular element, is there a, maybe we're already speaking to that, but a standout myth that you would frame maybe as a myth that needs to be dispelled? Is that kind of part of what we're already saying here, that because we are talking truth behind dentistry, right? So it's like, if you peer behind the curtain, what's actually going on here?
Yeah. I mean, I think the I guess there's a big lie in there somewhere, or a misinformation. I don't know specifically, really didn't give much thought to what kind of what the big lie is, other than I think we're lying to ourselves a little bit about the business of dentistry. How do dentists really look at their practice? And how are they're not really running it like a business. We're still running it like it's a healthcare, and a lot of people they want to help people. They don't want to focus on collecting and doing those things. So I think the big lie is that we're a healthcare, but we're also a business too. Right. And how do you marry those two together? Then not a lot of thought is given to that, I think, in the practices. So
maybe that it doesn't have to be an either or, right?
Right. It's both.
I was just doing a team training call myself just, I don't know, a week ago maybe. And one of the team members, we were talking about shared team values, and she had, the word efficient was part of a phrase that was wanted to be used by the rest of the team. Mm-hmm. She was phobic to the word efficient because it sounded too business-like, transactional. It's like, and then the others were going, why would us being efficient in the delivery of this high quality, great connection value, why would that be a problem? And she said, I don't know, it just doesn't feel, this feels uncaring or something, that we're being efficient, like we're cutting corners. So I think there are these disconnects, like we can't have a great business that's really thriving there, but also to have everybody doing well as a team, delivering high quality service. So yeah, I think that we need to keep looking at that. Tell me a little bit about the impact that you feel like in your work that you're making to speak. I mean, you mentioned a little bit before, but to speak to some of these areas of concern, kind of your heart, passion, and what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, my passion lies with really, helping offices become those resonant offices where they resonate with what's happening, and that they all feel co-ownership. I read a book a few years back, and called It's My Company Too. And it was really empowering to learn how people will work if they really feel that connection. And it's not always about, the high dollar amounts are being paid more. And I think I'm really passionate about, helping offices come to that conclusion where we can create that dynamic, and the offices all feel like they're part of the ownership process. And part of that can come from compensation. It can come from, emotional programs that we're doing, and that empathy and caring for our team. And we can still run a very efficient, high producing office, but that has extreme empathy. I mean, I've worked with many offices that I think the ones that have the most empathy can be the most successful as well, because they have that strong patient connection. So that's where I feel I have a lot of passion for. So whether that's, transitioning in an associate so that it doesn't disrupt the whole apple cart and everything goes flying out, where you start losing employees and you think you're doing something good. So, work with a lot on how to engage the team in making those decisions. And not that it's taking the power away from the dentist to make those decisions, but engaging that team and telling them what they're thinking, why they're thinking it, and helping them walk through that change leadership role is I think really something that's needed in dentistry today, that we don't have a lot of, is teaching the dentists how to be change leaders and help their team through those transitional times, whether it's bringing on some new composite. It sounds so silly. But, anytime you change things, I mean, we're creatures of habit, and it does sometimes give, very strong emotions to team members. So it's a long-winded way to say that, those cultures are very important to me. I'm really passionate about getting all the systems in place so that we have the right culture.
Yeah, well, that's why you are the practice transition catalyst, right?
That's I'm just just sparking up those transitions.
Great. That's great. Well, as we prepare to kind of wrap up,
Sure.
if you were to pull out your crystal ball, because I'm certain you must have one, right?
I do, right here.
That as you look ahead into the next 5 to 10 years, any particular, either in relationship to what we've already been talking about, that you see coming, or anything else? When you look ahead, what do you see in the dental industry?
I think our technology is going to continue to grow in a positive direction, and that brings to some efficiency in practices and making a more positive experience for the patient with the digital impressioning that's really refined itself over the years and gotten really great. I think that'll continue to be a huge thing, and I think we'll continue to see these small doctor-owned type, for lack of a better term, like a dental-owned DSO, where these small groups that are for the economies of scale, so that they can stay still in that private practice mode. Just that whole avenue, I think, is going to be a big change we're going to see in dentistry. And obviously, the human connection will always be there, and hopefully in 5 or 10 years, we're going to have an abundance of team members that we can pick and choose from.
Right.
And I do hope that insurance, I don't know, I know there's legislation going around, but I would love to see, which I don't know that can happen, that in the next, few years, we can see that industry changing in a positive direction for us, so that the patients can get, the benefits they deserve. So it's where I'd like to see that part of the industry growing, but there's hopefully some people out there that are really carrying that flag out there and going to help us out with that.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I so thank you for your time today.
Oh, absolutely.
And your contribution, all that you're doing. So for those listening who would like to connect with you and learn more about what you have to offer, how can they best find you?
Well, you can, my email is very simple. It's info, and it's my name, Kathy Lamont, Kathy with a K and a Y. And, if you want, you can pop it in a chat box or something for people or whatever they need to see. But that's probably the easiest way. I am on LinkedIn, searchable by Kathy Lamont. But I think that's the best way is email, and we can set some time up to talk about how I might help them.
That's great. That's great. Well, I've appreciated our conversations today and previous, and look forward to more of those opportunities. And thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast with Dr. Matthew Norton of People Plus Purpose, here with our practice transition catalyst, Kathy Lamont, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.